Imagine a world where everybody is overweight. So in Disney's 2008 movie with Pixar, Wall-E, they display this reality. What's concerning is that at the rate we're headed, humanity is not very far off from this reality, with rates of obesity increasing over time. And without serious reform in health education in the United States, we won't have to imagine for much longer. So before we get into all specific details about what obesity is, I'm going to give a quick overview about what's to come in this presentation. So first, I'm going to define what is obesity, why is it a growing problem in the United States, the factors that contribute to it, which is sedentary lifestyle, sugar, social norms, and I'm going to wrap up with the policy, which is reform in health education. So according to the National Institute of Diabetes and Digestive Kidney Disease, obesity is defined as weighing more than normal, or what is considered normal, after adjusting for height. And according to USA Facts, a nonpartisan, unbiased source for United States demographic information, as you can see, rates of obesity have been on the rise from 1996 to 2016. In the past 50 years alone, the rate of obesity in the U.S. has tripled. How do people become obese? So basically, it's just physics and energy balance. It has to do with energy expenditure versus energy intake. So everyone has their total daily energy expenditure, which is basically your maintenance calories, how many calories you can consume, and you will not gain or lose weight. So that will be determined by the blue line. This is your maintenance calories. Let's say you consume more than your maintenance calories. This is a surplus. So this difference here is going to be stored as fat. So that's how fat gain happens. Or if you were to eat less than your maintenance, this difference here is going to be burned as fat. So that's just really quickly the science about how weight gain and weight loss happens. So let's get into the different types of body fat. So there's visceral and subcutaneous body fat. Visceral fat is the fat that builds up in and around your organs and your arteries. Subcutaneous fat is the fat that stores under your skin. So studies have shown that subcutaneous fat is actually not that harmful for your health, whereas visceral fat is one of the leading causes for metabolic syndrome, which I'll get into in a second. And a study from the Journal of Obesity and Metabolic Syndrome confirms that visceral fat is associated with cardiovascular disease. And visceral fat is a result of consuming processed foods and sugars, whereas subcutaneous fat is just being in a general caloric surplus, like what I illustrated on the whiteboard. So, metabolic syndrome. Obesity is the primary factor causing metabolic syndrome, and metabolic syndrome is defined by the National Heart, Lung, and Liver Institute as a group of risk factors raising risk for all of these health problems listed up here. So heart disease, lipid problems, hypertension, diabetes, dementia, cancer, polycystic ovarian syndrome, and non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. And the problem isn't exactly obesity. Obesity isn't what's dangerous for your health. The problem is metabolic syndrome, which is caused by obesity. So the first factor that causes the obesity epidemic in the United States is the sedentary lifestyle of the modern day. So firstly, the transition of the United States economy over the years from manufacturing-based economy to a service-based economy has played a role in creating the sedentary lifestyle. So like 100 years ago, or like during the time of the Industrial Revolution, a lot of Americans were working in factories and super high physically intensive manufacturing jobs. Nowadays, in this more service-based economy, we have these office jobs with cubicles, people sitting at desks from 9 to 5 a.m. Yeah, and then in addition, the development of like transportation technology, cars, trains, buses, planes, this takes away the natural design of humans to walk around and stuff, which is a huge amount of our daily energy expenditure that I described. So without this, we're moving around with all this technology. We don't have that same metabolic rate as we used to. And lastly, the COVID-19 pandemic we're all locked in our houses, gyms closed, sports were canceled, and we didn't even have to meet in person with new technology such as Zoom. And according to the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, people should be getting 150 minutes a week of moderate intensity cardio exercise, in addition to strength training. And the different sedentary lifestyle details I mentioned make that very difficult to adhere to. All right. And then this is from the U.S. Health and Human Services Department. They have this graphic here that shows daily sleep time versus moderate to vigorous physical activity, and risk of all-cause mortality decreases as one moves from red to green. So as you can see, the more your daily sitting time increases, the more you're in that red zone, where you're at risk for cardiovascular disease and mortality, and the more physical activity you have, the better off you are. Okay, sugar. So sugar is another huge contributing factor to obesity in the United States. Basically, it's a carbohydrate that is easily broken down by chemical processes in your body. Consistent overconsumption of sugar spikes. Oh, well, this is sugar. My bad. Consistent overconsumption of sugar spikes your insulin levels, and insulin is the hormone that's responsible for nutrient partitioning. So basically, when you're consistently spiking this insulin, you develop what's known as insulin resistance. So since insulin is responsible, like I said, for nutrient partitioning, once you have that resistance, your body less efficiently uses the glucose that you eat from your food. So instead of using it for energy, your blood sugar stays relatively high, and that's bad for your health because it causes things like type 2 diabetes. And it also decreases your metabolism when you have insulin resistance. Okay, further, in a study done by French scientists that was published in the Society of Neuroscience, rats were given the option between cocaine and sugar, and the rats consistently chose sugar every time, even if the rats were addicted to cocaine prior to the experiment. So what this shows is that there are serious neuroscientific impacts of consuming sugar, because when you consume sugar, it gives you these large bursts of dopamine, and it's basically a positive feedback cycle that when you consume the sugar, you get the dopamine burst. Your body wants to keep chasing that dopamine burst like any other drug. So this is what makes it dangerous, and why obesity is such a big problem, is because it's neurochemically not exactly within our own control. And this graphic from Biomed Central shows the difference in mortality rates of adiposity, or in other words, obesity, versus smoking over time. And as you can see, there's a downward trend in the amount of deaths from smoking, whereas there's an upward trend in the amount of deaths from obesity. And studies show that obesity is actually more harmful for your health than smoking is. But the point I'm trying to make here is about social norms and the impact that social norms have regarding obesity. So even though obesity takes more lives than smoking does, we see all these ad campaigns about how bad smoking is for you. And I'm not in any way trying to justify smoking. What I'm trying to say is that there should be an equal amount of attention for something that's even more harmful. Okay, next is the body positivity dilemma. So this is an extremely touchy topic, and I'm honestly kind of uncomfortable talking about it myself, but that just proves the point that certain social norms, such as body positivity, are completely great, and I'm a huge advocate for them. However, the only problem with this is that it causes fear in people having actually productive discussions that's going to help save lives. Because at the end of the day, obesity is a disease and it's harmful for your health. And if we can't have productive conversations because we're afraid of offending people, then we won't make any progress with this issue. So if we don't want to end up in this situation where we're all floating around on our little chairs watching television like we're in the movie WALL-E, we need to make a change. So my policy calls for reform in health education in the United States. So current health education is really bad. Schools do not really care about it compared to core academics such as math and English. There's not enough of an emphasis. And in physical education classes, you're just tested on things like your push-ups, your mile time, instead of actually being taught practical information that you can apply to your day-to-day life. So what you can do today is donate to Shape America. Shape America is an organization of health and physical education professionals, and their goal is to improve health education nationwide. So, right, with thorough reform in health education across the United States, we can look forward to a future generations of healthier Americans. And for anyone who's been keeping up with Mark Zuckerberg and the metaverse and everything, virtual reality is going to be commonplace like just the regular internet in only 5 to 10 years. So that's going to create a whole new level of sedentary for